Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, France 24 speaks to Niger's exiled foreign minister as the coup leaders who took over his country last month say that the plan on prosecuting the detained president for high treason. Also, Guinea-Bissau's new government has its work cut out for it. A cabinet's finally been formed from political opponents to President Embalo. Our correspondent looks ahead to what's in store for this landmark shift for the country. And the trauma of the unknown. The families of some of those who went missing in the Gambia during the brutal regime of former strongman Yahya Jammeh are resting their final hopes in the findings of a task force set up to look into what happened to some of the disappeared. But first, West African bloc ECOWAS has slammed Nigerian coup leaders' plans to prosecute the elected president for high treason. Mohamed Bazoum's been detained at home since the military takeover on July 26th. ECOWAS has called the move a provocation and stupefying. On Monday, the African Union met in Ethiopia's capital for talks about the Nigerian crisis. But overall, the junta itself has sent mixed signals about its willingness to engage diplomatically. Catherine Norris-Trent is in Abuja, Nigeria, for France 24. Now, the country's president is the chair of ECOWAS. Catherine spoke to the exiled Nigerian foreign minister on Monday, and I asked her for his take on the junta's apparent pairing to double down on its hold on power.
France 24 and our sister radio station RFI teams sat down with Niger's foreign minister in exile, part of the government that's been ousted in this coup d'etat. He's here in neighbouring Nigeria, in Abuja for the moment, and he said he believed the situation was reversible for him, despite the fact now that this coup happened on July the 26th, and since then there's been very little sign of the junta backing down. He said that the international community needed to stand firm. He did believe there was going to be a military intervention. And he also spoke out in no uncertain terms, really condemning the announcement by the coup leaders that they intend to put Mohamed Bazoum and, quote, some international partners on trial for high treason. They said, their spokesman said in a TV statement that they had gathered all the evidence now to bring Mohamed Bazoum and other international leaders, without naming them, before justice. So this has been condemned by ECOWAS, the West African bloc, by the United States as well, and now by Niger's exiled foreign minister speaking to France 24. Take a listen to what he had to say.
The junta has no legitimacy to try anyone. These people who carried out this coup, this corrupt act we're witnessing, which is more than treason, it's a criminal act. They cannot pretend to have the moral status to put anyone on trial, or to contemplate accusing foreign leaders or President Bazoum of treason, or threaten them with prosecution. They are not qualified to do so, and they cannot claim to be from a moral point of view.
Ils ne peuvent même pas avoir cette prétention.
Catherine there for us in Abuja. Now, whether or not ECOWAS follows through with threats of a military response to Niger, the bloc's tough line with its member has already come at a cost for many countries in the region, particularly when it comes to Niger's neighbours. Benins' enforcement of economic sanctions on Niger has left its own economy suffering. Our team reports.
For the past 15 days, hundreds of cargo trucks have been stuck at the northernmost point of Benin, near the Niger border. Traffic has come to a standstill in Malanville since Benin enforced economic sanctions on Niger.
It's really tough. You see the state of the park. It's really disgusting. I don't want to get involved in politics, but my wish is to find a solution that allows me to leave these conditions.
We're suffering here. We can't even sleep. There's rain and there's thieves.
Under normal circumstances, nearly 1,000 Nigerian trucks drive through this corridor, stretching from the port of Cotonou through Malanville to Niamey every day. A route considered safe from terrorist attacks.
Even finding water is a problem.
Malanville also stands as the second largest market in Benin, attracting wholesalers from Togo, Burkina Faso, and Nigeria. Nigerians are the top buyers of cereal and play a crucial role in this market. But since sanctions were imposed on the neighboring country, this Beninese wholesaler hasn't been able to sell his maize.
The Niger embargo is a total nightmare. With the border closed, we have nothing to do. The authorities from all levels should consider and see which solution to choose to reopen these borders and keep the activities going.
Farmers in Benin's Alibori department have been hit the hardest by the trade freeze, as they rely exclusively on the interdependent Nigerian and Beninese markets.
If these sanctions and border closures continue, then the government needs to consider supporting traders who've been affected.
Getting produce into the country is also now difficult. Onions en route from the Nigerian city of Gaya are now rotting across the border. Traders living along the border have been forced to secretly cross the Niger River to transport their goods. But the cost of that journey has also skyrocketed and is reflected in higher prices for goods that do make it through.
Well, at least 26 members of the Nigerian security forces have been killed in an armed ambush before a helicopter that had reportedly been rescuing 8 troops wounded in the original raid crashed. Now, it went down on Monday near Chakuba village in the Shiroro area of Niger State. Armed gangs known as bandits are believed to have been behind the attacks. In June, Guinea-Bissau's ruling party suffered a crushing defeat during parliamentary elections. Over the weekend, the winning coalition formed a government composed entirely of political opponents to the president, Umaru Sissoco Embalo. Our regional correspondent, Sam Bradpeace, tells us more about some of the challenges ahead for the new cabinet.
Guinea-Bissau is one of the poorest and least stable countries in the world. It's had a dozen coups since 1980 and is a major transit point in the international cocaine trade. Its president, though, says that the new government, which is composed chiefly of his political opponents, should focus on a different problem altogether: endemic corruption.
The new Attorney General should have a zero-tolerance approach when it comes to corruption. The same can be said of government auditors. I would like you to scrutinize everyone with access to state finances. That is your role. You should also scrutinize me as president if I'm not able to account for spending.
President Embalo's party lost the legislative elections in June, in part because of a crisis hitting the country's cashew nut sector, which has hurt the incomes of hundreds of thousands of people. It remains to be seen whether the presidency can work with the new government to improve the lives of ordinary Bissau Guineans.
At least 26 people have been killed in an airstrike in Ethiopia's Amhara region. It's been rocked this month by deadly clashes between the army and local militia known as Fano. Finote Salam was reportedly under the control of the Fano when the bombing targeted civilians as a market was being held on Sunday. The Gambia's Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, active from 2017 to 2021, investigated abuses of the 22 regime of former dictator Yahya Jammeh. Its final report held Jammeh, who is currently living in exile in Equatorial Guinea, responsible for the killing of more than 200 people. The whereabouts of some of those who disappeared under him are still unknown. A new task force, though, is being set up to look into what happened to some of the missing. Our team reports.
In July 2006, Gambian journalist Chief Ibrahima Mane was abducted from this building by security forces working for the then dictator Yahya Jammeh. He was never seen again. A former colleague says there is no doubt about his fate.
He was taken from this building in the presence of his colleagues in broad daylight. So he couldn't have gone anywhere. There was no other explanation. He was murdered by the state.
Chief Mane was the main breadwinner for his extended family, helping pay for dozens of nieces and nephews to go to school. Nearly 2 decades after his disappearance, his mother is traumatized and still has unanswered questions.
I can no longer sleep. I cry a lot. But it was God's will. I don't know who kidnapped him or who killed him, I have heard that he died, but I never found his body.
A new government task force will be set up in the coming months to investigate Chief Mane's disappearance, as well as a handful of other cases left unsolved by the Gambia's Truth Commission set up after Jammeh left the country in 2017. Sira Ndao, whose uncle was forcibly disappeared under Jammeh's rule, will assist the new government task force in its work.
There has to be clarity. And talking from experience from the disappearance of my uncle, it is very important. It's an unimaginable state of being, not knowing what happened to your loved one.
Identifying those responsible for the presumed murder of Chief Mane and the other victims will likely require new witnesses to come forward. Only then can there be justice.
Well, that's it for Eye in Africa. Thanks for joining us. See you again. Until then, take care.